All right, Vice Chair McDonald, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Calling the meeting to order. Welcome back from the summer, everybody. It's officially fall. I hope everyone had a wonderful summer and that everyone spent a lot of time outdoors. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Cavan Monaghan is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of Mississauga Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to First Nations for their care for and teachings about these lands. May we honor these teachings. So I'll first ask for approval of the agenda. Did everyone receive, first of all, did everyone receive the invitation to open the link from Mark? Because we've had some trouble with that this morning. So did everyone receive that email? Okay, and has everyone had a chance to have a look at the agenda? All right, any additions or deletions or suggestions or ideas about what we should add today? Could I have a move to approve the agenda, please, from Kurt? And seconded by John.
To the chair, can I just speak to the minutes issue? So for those of you who are wondering, and I got a couple of questions about it, we have a couple of sets of minutes from 2023. And basically I was doing an audit of our records, and this is not only limited to this committee. And I saw that these minutes were not adopted at any time by the committee. And we have legal obligations around keeping records of our minutes, but to actually put them in our records, they need to be adopted by the committee. So we're just making sure we meet the standards. So if anybody's wondering about the 2020.
All right. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and anything related to that from anybody? That being the case, we'll again address the minutes. I must be at my age now totally calendar and time blind because it escaped me entirely that those weren't and I couldn't even remember when did Carly leave her maternity. So you could have fooled me. So we'll move on to reports.
Sorry.
We have to, yeah.
We need to have a motion. We can just have one motion to adopt the minutes from April 24th, 2023, May 15th, 2023, and the June 24th, 2023.
I'll make a motion.
I can second that.
Thank you. All right, moving on to reports, financial report from Chris Allison.
So for the financial report, out of the 17 allocated for contracted services, $1,729.92 has been spent. So we're $29.92 over. Materials and supplies out of the 4,800, 3,235.50 has been spent. The remaining budget is $1,564.50.
Say that again, Chris. The
remaining,
yeah,
$1,564.50.
Thank you. And does anyone have any outstanding bills to submit or receipts to submit? Nothing that anyone can remember. Okay, move to accept the financial report. John?
I can second it.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Madam Chair, don't think we voted on the minutes motion. We go back and do that?
Yes,
Please didn't vote on this either. Just
yes.
vote moved and seconded, but you've never called for a vote for anything.
Because I'm not in this spot very often. Okay, shall we go back and vote on anything that we need to vote on so that we don't end up
You
in
did vote
the
on the
same?
agenda.
Okay, yeah.
So we have a motion or a seconder for the minutes. Can we just have a vote, please?
Vote, thank you.
And the same for the financial report, please.
Okay. Don't let me stumble like that. Just
No.
poke me.
Sorry.
Okay. I don't do this very often. Now the Orca update with Meredith Carter.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. First of all, congratulations on the bridge and the boardwalks. Those look fantastic. Really appreciated the photos coming through. Those were great. And I did share them with our plan review and permitting staff, and everyone's very happy with how that turned out. So well done. In terms of updates, we are entering into the fall season, of course, so our campgrounds will be closing at Thanksgiving. We are starting the delivery of our planting and education programs, and we have welcomed a new manager of corporate services. So Jennifer Eggleton has joined us after one of our longstanding staff retired. So you've got a new face in the building. I think those are all the updates I have for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has some.
So just as a question, Jennifer Eglinton, what particular aspects, manager of corporate services, how would we be interfacing with her?
Finance primarily.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, thank you. Any questions, anybody? And movement to accept the reports from Orca. Don,
One second.
Lance. And a vote. And given that Rob isn't here yet, shall we wait for him with regard to the trails report? He said he'd only be
So
10
he
or
is
15
coming?
minutes.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
yeah. Mhm. Come back to it when he arrives. Okay, with respect to general business,
The budget discussion is the first item.
yeah. is there one other thing? I'm almost wondering if we should ask Rob how he's doing. Phone.
Chair, Vice Chair McDonald, if I can give my opinion on this, my suggestion would be that we should proceed with the budget discussion. If there's anything, ultimately he will be coming in to vote on the proposal. If you want to maybe delay the proposed budget until he arrives, you could potentially do that. But I would suggest getting the discussion going. If he needs to be here for the trail report item, we can. He'll know what the final proposal is being voted upon. That's my advice.
Unless, yeah, unless he's gonna be here in 30 seconds, in
Oh.
case it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing? It's Maureen. Are you en route? Okay, it sounds like he's likely en route. Yes, I can hear you. I think he said be there in a minute. It just would be a little bit more efficient for him to be here, since he intends to be here.
Who else was on the trails?
Kirk
Sure. Can
Hillsley,
you
so
speak
we
to
could do
your
that.
side? Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
yeah, so pretty much all fails apart from Danny and Dale. in the last couple of weeks. Generally, no significant issues have been, right, a full report. I think the big area I think to report on is Baxter Creek, where it's been impacted by the four-wheel drive access getting into repair the boardwalk and that. I think, you know, the actual boardwalk that's been put in there looks really nice. But the amount of degradation of the trail over the kilometre or so from Fourth Line to there is fairly significant in my perspective. And there's, you know, there's two issues, mainly just obviously new ruts that have been made. And then there's 3 entire sections of boardwalk, I would guess totaling 100 feet or so, that have been destroyed or just cut up and moved to the side. And so it is what it is, it's been done. I would just sort of, moving forwards, maybe have it on record that having four-wheel drives going over trails is inevitably going to lead to yet more work that needs to be done to repair those trails on the access point. And I don't have a good solution for it other than just not allowing four-wheel drives, etc. on, or 4x4s, I mean. But it is pretty significant. And again, the work they've done, no complaints are like. That's really the main, what I think is the focus of my aspect of the report. And I was just talking about the access to the floating bridge area from the Fourth Line, the damage.
So with those
Okay.
boardwalks, they are coming to wrapping, we'll put them back together. They are returning.
But what about and apologies everyone for being late. What about the remediation that I just think I heard the tail end of Kirk talk about in terms of the soil and the.
So I've been through it all, and there is some rut in the low areas. The whole trail is not impacted badly yet. I find there is a couple ruts, yes.
And will we be responsible for that?
We will be, yeah. They'll probably have staff in there to fix them up. There's
Okay.
only a couple of areas that aren't horrible. So I have been in discussions with them. They have the 3 remaining sections in there. So I've been in contact with Orca, and our plan is to use those 3 sections to cover up one of the areas, the low areas. 2 sections will be for the low area. 1 section will be where the old floating bridge piece is in there.
Mhm.
It'll go over top of that.
Okay.
And the floating piece, they're gonna cut it up and bring it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And will those frames, the sections that are standing in there waiting to be used,
They'll
will
be
they
used
be
for that.
placed on the concrete footing?
Same as the
well?
other ones,
Same
yeah.
as the other ones, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be an advantage. The gouging is a problem, and the widening of the trail is a problem in that, having been compacted in places and having standing water in other places, which stays for a long time. I've been in a couple times now after rain, not even heavy rain. And there's a substantial pooling that goes on. So all of that encourages invasives, and particularly really aggressive ones that change the soil,
Yeah.
like dog strangling vine. So from our perspective, of wanting, you know, a sort of a pristine area,
Yeah.
it is a problem.
So it was a very intensive job in a remote
Yeah,
location,
yeah.
right? And the
Mhm.
ATV is the least impact of
Mhm.
most machinery to get in there.
Mhm.
So yeah, we
Which-
expected some damage to be done, but
Yeah,
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 all in all, I think there wasn't a lot of damage for how many times they had to run in there and how much
Mhm.
material was taken in there.
yeah, yeah. We're just used to doing that all on our own. You
Yeah.
know, humping. So, it's good to hear that they will be back and that some remediation will be attempted. Any other concerns about Kirk's section of the report?
Sorry, Kirk, can you just remind me as I wasn't here, what you covered?
Basically, everything apart from Dale and Gany.
Okay, so did we discuss, when we were discussing the impact of the construction, were we also discussing the impact of the construction for the new bridge and Baxter Creek? Did we
No,
talk
I
about that yet?
didn't touch that, so you can.
Okay, so I don't know, apologies again. I don't know if you had brought it up that the bridge is in place and done and
Meredith did.
you did, okay, yeah. I think I am, I think it looks great. I think the bridge is very in keeping with the other bridges on the trail and, yeah, no, it's good. There was a bit of impact for that too, obviously, right? I mean, there's not too much impact on the trail to the bridge itself, right? I think that can be done with a bit of raking and, you know, hopefully in the early spring or whenever we have it available to us, we can put more mulch down, right? The trail is now wider than it was. But not, you know, it's not the end of the world, right?
Wider is good if there is an injury in there, because you're gonna have to get a side by side in there.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
wide,
so the
it's
fire
wider to a
department has a
point.
side by side, if it's a 3-foot trail, we need to be able to get in there as well, right, and help out somebody.
Okay, what about where they cross the waterway and then around, sort of off trail around to the bridge? Is there gonna be any remediation to that?
We can look at it, yeah.
Okay.
They did use pads, or they were supposed to use pads to go across there,
Mhm.
but when they got up into the trees, it's the
Just
same thing, it's equipment, it's a remote location,
Yeah, no,
it's the only way to get it in there, right?
I guess my question, Chris, is that up to us, township staff, both, or the
We can have a look.
contractor?
We can have a look, it'll be township staff.
Okay, and does Orca have any concerns with with the sort of the compaction and that sort of thing?
That I think was a conversation you had with Dawn earlier.
We talked about, everybody knew all the way along, like, we have to get equipment in there, there's gonna be some effect on the surroundings,
Mhm.
and so with the permit process, it was the mini excavator going in there. With the permit process, it was the ATV going in there, it was all up front right from the start.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Don didn't have any concerns around the soil erosion right at the bridge itself, where the bridge actually crosses the
So it was
water?
all built to specs that were sent to Orca.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
And for those that haven't seen the bridge yet, it does have the ability to raise, or I talked to the gentleman at R&J Machine while they were there.
Yeah, so if it does sink, it does have adjustable legs on it, so we can adjust it up to level it up. So it's got 5 inches of play on every corner, so if it sinks or lifts, we can up and down.
Oh, okay, I was told 8, yeah, but 8 inches, but
Yeah.
5 only to strip, yeah, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a nice little feature for sure. Any questions around that? No, okay. I was not able to get to Gany Transit, but DL is fine. I walked DL this afternoon and you had also had said you had been on DL lately? Or no, sorry, you
No, I
said you had.
have in August.
Sorry, Dave had. And you didn't have any concerns with Gany Transit?
No, Gany Trans, it's in good shape. I was just thinking now, there was that wasp nest.
Yep.
That I told you about. Did you guys spray that?
Yeah, we got out that afternoon.
Okay, so the wasps are continuing to thrive.
Are they?
They
Okay.
might need another spray or
Sounds like
a
it.
different type of spray.
Yeah.
So there's a wasp nest right by, in the ground, really where Gany Transit crosses Fire Route 310, just
Yeah.
on the east side there, so very close to the fire route, probably 20 feet away. Just at the base of a tree, so just heads up if you're out there. But yeah, Chris's guys did spray once and just, I guess it needs it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing on the DL, Fire Route 3 is just the water and how it drains. I don't know if we could put some gravel down or try to just like patch some areas where it pools, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is there, but
I thought it was better than other years.
yeah, I did recently clear some of the drains, but I find it's constantly flowing across, whereas in the past it would hold and then areas would drain away, but you'd get this dry patch in the middle, and I find there's always puddles in a few spots in the middle now. Anyway, that's.
I always
something I'm
drain it
fussy about.
whenever I go past.
Oh, do you?
as well, yeah.
Okay,
Cut in with your boot. then,
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to do the same. I think, Chris, we've talked about this before. I think the roads department's a bit reluctant to put gravel down there as to memory serves.
Yeah, I can't get in there.
Right, because of the wet.
The wet and the width, the height.
Right, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
I had one observation on Cedar Trail. Were you guys gonna talk about Cedar Trail at all? Just the, and I mentioned it to Chris, because I thought the township did it, and I apologize. They didn't, but there's a bunch of limestone screening that was added at the bottom of Cedar Trail on a corner. It seems to have been done to, to remedy like some erosion that was going on there. So it seems to be like chunky rock. I don't know what to call it, but anyway, actual like broken. What's it called?
Probably riprap. Like the
Riprap
big-
is what it's
the
called?
big angular stuff.
Yeah, just like broken rock pieces with limestone screenings to fill the gaps. But the reason there was erosion there in the first place is partially mountain bikes, but also being a fall line trail, the rain just kind of rushes down there, or the rainwater. And so that's happening with the limestone as well, it's just washing away. So I don't know if who did it. I don't think it was anyone on the committee, and so it must be the M&R
This is
that
the
did it.
NRF, they must have, but it wasn't township staff.
Okay, I'd just like to know if we can change it or ask them not to do it. I don't, because it wasn't a great solution. Like, sorry, not being overly critical, but it's a loose material that creates a traction issue, and it's also washing away from rain, so. We could attempt to make another repair if they're okay with that. But I didn't know if we should contact them.
So when we went through, me and you, when we were looking at the trail diversion,
Mhm.
so they do want any works at all, they want a site plan. They want what materials going down, they wanna know it all first before anything goes on.
Okay,
So it all comes down to nowadays, everything is liability and insurance, so I think all these, everybody's sort of getting on the books with doing everything properly and going through the right steps and procedures.
okay. So just in my opinion, it's not better, it's possibly worse.
Yeah,
So
I guess,
don't know if we-
maybe the argument, our stance, Chris, is that maybe that's not the right procedures, especially if we've got mountain bikes and things going through there.
Yeah, and just even if it's our trail, I know it's their property, but if it's our trail that we're assuming some liability and responsibility for.
Yeah.
Then we want it to be good for our users and safe, obviously safe
Yeah, we
for our
can
users. So
follow up with like, yeah.
it'd be good just to find out if, I mean, it wasn't just like a hack job that some hiker or biker did. You know,
So
someone brought in
I
material.
think it was them if
Yeah.
it's that kind of work that was done, and really that's their call and their.
Even though
Their
the
property.
trails are maintained by us.
Well, even if I go to do it, they're going to take my submission and they're gonna tell me to do their procedures, which is what they just did, right?
Okay, but is there a possibility of conversation with them?
I can have a conversation.
To maybe make it a bit better for users, not take away what they've done necessarily, if that's what they want, but could we fill in some of the, like, when smaller gravel work to sort of fill in those spots, make it a bit smoother?
I think it needs something to bind everything together, so it's
Like
what was the rock
borders.
called? Flip flap?
Riprap.
Rip wrap with limestone screenings over top. So the limestone screenings are washing away down the trail.
So sort of edge it with some wood even.
Oh, I was just thinking dirt, like it should just be dirt. And if probably the part that needs to be remedied is the water rushing down the trail into that spot. And maybe there's a diversion, we can just shaping the dirt to create a diversion so the water goes off the sides
Okay.
instead of rushing down. But I would just use dirt.
Can you send me a picture and location on it and I'll follow up?
Sure.
John?
Is it possible if it's the cuts following the water, we could just put the path to the side but higher?
I think what Chris is saying is we'd have to ask them.
No, I mean, that,
Yeah.
but could we make that suggestion, or is it better to try to, like, if the water's gotta go somewhere, and if that's where it wants to go, if we could just offset by 5 feet, if they let us do that, is that a possibility, or is it?
Very
Outside the
dense
trail.
cedar there.
Pardon me?
It's very dense cedar there. I think it'd be easier just to try and divert the water a little bit immediately up.
Maybe, I mean, if it's possible to divert the water, then that makes sense. I just,
Well, maybe Chris, if you could broach the subject, if they're willing to have discussions about, if we have some minor concerns about maybe making some minor changes to make it easier, but with their permission, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'd be happy to,
Yeah, just give me a picture and location and I'll follow
okay. And I'd be happy to have those conversations with them and with Dave if you're willing.
Sure.
Is it still Jeff Wiltshire? Is there a main point of contact with him on it?
Yeah, I deal with Jeff. Yeah, there's a couple of them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I just think it's probably the first time they've done work on one of our trails.
Yeah, it's
And so
unusual.
it would just be good to establish how that should happen in the future and what conversations should be had, you know, with us, as a courtesy.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Yeah, because they even earlier this summer, like prior to the workday, they went in at the trout ponds, right? And remember they had some ruts. They're brought in by vehicles and they contacted us and said, you know, we're gonna remediate those. So yeah, it was a bit surprising that.
Well, maybe we should just establish if it is MNRF.
Right,
That would be
yeah.
good.
And we'll start with I'll contact them
Yeah,
and see
okay.
where we're at.
Perfect, and then you can loop Dawn in if you're rerouting anything. Perfect, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, any other discussions around trail report then? No? Okay, sorry, did you receive my email?
No, I'm sorry,
No, that's all right, Maureen, did you receive mine?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so you let him-
Folks know, yeah.
It was on work call, everybody,
Sorry about
didn't
that.
respect the 4 o'clock ending time, it's difficult to control that sort of thing, so I apologize for the being. Can I just get a real quick, the financial report, just how much you're in, how much is left?
Thing on
So contracted services out of 1,729.92 have been spent, so we're $29.92 over. Materials and supplies out of 4,800 allocated, spent is 3,235.50. Remaining is 1,564.50.
Okay, and on the contracted services, you've received invoices from Ironwood Property for
So that is, yeah, I believe that's
Okay.
what that's put it
There's
on.
nothing outstanding that you're aware of,
Not that I'm aware of,
and nothing outstanding under materials?
not that I'm aware of.
No, nobody has anything, no, okay, great, sorry, thank you for that catch up.
Chair Jackson, just before we proceed, can we just have a motion, second and vote, for receiving the trail report, please?
No, yes, sorry. Have a motion to, receive and accept the trail report, please. Was motion, Griffin, seconded by, Renee. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next, 7.1, 2025 budget discussion. This is township owners here, do you wanna?
Yeah, so we're entering the 2025 budget season. We're asking that the committee discusses what their financial asks are for 2025 and have a discussion today and see where we're at. So new this year, I believe, Mark, the chair will be going to council with their ask.
Yes, the chair will be presenting, I think they did last year, I might be mistaken, I was not here. Okay, so the chairs will be presenting to council, their ask, ideally in person, you have accommodation to do it online. I can talk to you after the meeting, and if you have any questions about it, just email me.
And what date would council expect you to present this?
The first budget meeting, sorry, I'm going off memory, I'm gonna pull on my calendar, just double check, it's in November, I believe it's November 21st. I see Councillor Natchoff looking at his calendar as well.
Well, we're still looking for, we're still not getting approval until March.
Yeah, November 21st, 9 AM.
Day is that?
It's a Thursday.
Okay. but we still wouldn't get final approval until March timeline? Is that still the situation from past years?
The budget itself, like the final budget itself will be approved in, again, I'm sorry, I'm going off memory. It's, I believe, February 9th. It might be no, it's January, late January.
Okay.
I don't know when the money itself would go out. Maybe
I
Chris.
believe final budget is January.
Yeah.
End of January, February, yeah.
Okay. And is the chair expected to present just once or at multiple budget meetings?
January the 27th.
Yes. I will follow up with you, but my understanding is right now it's just for the initial budget meeting in November 21st. I think some of the specifics are still being ironed out, but I'll follow up with you with the answer to that question. I don't have.
Okay, that's fine. So essentially we have this meeting and October's meeting to finalize things, because I'm assuming November 27th is at 9 AM. That's the same date as our meeting, but it won't be till 4 PM.
Not to correct you, but actually, we're kind of giving a special exemption for our committees to submit the budget a little bit later because of the timeline, but the departments have already actually had to submit their budgets, and it does need to be discussed in this meeting. This was a product of a decision that was made in December to push forward the budget process. It's something several other municipalities are doing as well. So yes, if you're seeking to defer the item, I would advise against that.
No, I'm not seeking to defer.
Okay.
I'm just saying we've got two meetings, this
Yes.
meeting and October's meeting to discuss.
Mhm.
Okay, I guess my initial thoughts as chair would be that, we've had a lot of conversations leading up to this. First thoughts are that it's difficult to ask for money if we're no longer gonna be able to do a lot of the work, right? So if we wanna build a new bridge, and I'm thinking about, the loop, Dave, that you started pre-COVID to Fairgrounds, right? I mean, we would obviously have to get that approved, but if it's approved, what year would it be? And then we would have no idea what sort of contracted services would cost, if that's even feasible. So I guess I'm looking at you, Chris, in terms of what are we simply asking for materials, tools, contracted services under our control, i.e. ironwood spraying? And anything above and beyond that would be an expected further discussion with council for an additional ask.
It would be a capital project if you're looking to replace a bridge, it'll be a capital ask on top of your contracted services, materials and supplies. So I'm not sure you're over on your contracted services right now, whether you want to bump those up. I know last year you bumped it up $200, you were at 1,500, bumped it up 1,700 to cover the spraying. We're over again. If you are looking to do any projects next year, you got 4,800 in material and supplies. If you think you're gonna need another 500 or whatever, you just have your ask and have your backup as to why you're gonna need an extra 500 here, why you're gonna need extra here.
Okay, but I guess, again, the question comes down to what will we be allowed to build next year?
So a bridge would be a contractor.
Yeah, what about boardwalk?
Boardwalks would be contractors.
Any new
Oh,
boardwalk?
boardwalk.
Any new boardwalk is contractor.
What do we do?
What's the purpose of this committee?
Yeah, why are we here?
Well, we have had conversations with insurance and boardwalks, bridges.
But why are we
construction.
letting insurance companies dictate what we can and can't do at a municipal level? This is our money. Like,
It's,
I've talked to many other municipalities and townships in the province, and they do not have similar restrictions. So, and I can list them. I've got a list and the contacts of people I've spoken with. So I don't understand why the township of Cavan is being subjected to these kind of rules and regulations. And
This is going on across the board. I have discussed with townships as well. I have put it out to Ontario Recreation Facilities Association. It's liability, it's mitigation, it's the way it is nowadays. I know you're all disappointed. I know it's stuff you used to do. Back in the day, you could do it. This day and age, it's all liability.
But we literally don't need any supplies then, no? Like,
yeah, so
like what would we need to spend money on that we can do?
You can replace a board, you can't build a boardwalk.
for how long are we gonna be able to replace a board for?
I can't answer that, Rob. I'm
No,
just,
I know you're just the messenger, but you can understand the frustration, Chris, right? I know it's not you making these rules, and I know it's not a vet, but yeah, I mean, Kirk's got a good point. What are we here for?
We might as well.
If we can't do anything. Like, we can't even make a decision on the bridge. That's gotta go to the council. John,
But I think I'm a little surprised about the boardwalk, because when I was going to say if there's going to be quite a bit of boardwalk to be replaced next year. So we would probably be increasing our budget for that. Having said that, I guess all we can do is say, judging, so I was also going to say, I thought we needed to be at least having, I'm to the point where I understand they build the bridges. Maybe my back is getting weak and all that, but so I can see that. I understand the liability argument, having been on council and that sort of stuff too. But certainly I think we should be recommending that they have a look at the bridge. If we're not going to be allowed to replace it, they should be having a look at the bridge at the old school, because it's not gonna be too long before we would be building a new one back in the day. So now we're going to be saying, you need to fix this bridge, we need to build this new bridge, and you need to build X number of meters of boardwalk. And then that seems to be where we are. I'm disappointed. I figure we can build a safe boardwalk. I'm a little disappointed by that. And I tend to agree with you, you know. What are we doing? We are an advisory committee, and it used to be we were a hands-on committee, and now it's a different animal. So whether we will be choosing to be on the committee next time, I guess that's what I'll be struggling with. I think we do contribute by doing the trail reports, but on the other hand, we're not really competent to do those either. So in a trained way, so I'm not even sure, you know, another 5 years, probably we won't be capable of doing that. So I'm at an age where I'm ready to retire, so. But I understand your frustration.
well, I guess to your point, Joe, but I mean, we're an advisory committee, but
We are being advised.
isn't it ultimately up to township staff to determine the structural integrity of something like the bridge by the library and determine when it gets replaced?
yeah, so if you've done your trail report and you think it's an issue, we will go out and assess it, and
But
we'll see what kind of.
I guess I'm asking, under these insurance rules, are insurance companies telling you to keep an eye on things and keep track of your assets and when they need to be replaced?
That's right.
So we're just doing the job that the township staff's gonna have to do anyway, so again, why are we here?
I can't answer that, Rob. So you guys do the trail reports, insurance knows we do the monthly and trail reports. They have not commented on whether it's staff that has to do them or not. They have commented that any boardwalks, bridges that are being built have to be built by qualified people.
So what in your view would we do, say, on a work day? What would we be allowed
Put
to
out
do?
the mulch, they said you can trim branches, you can trim weeds, you can put out mulch, you can replace boards. Minor maintenance.
And how would we trim limbs? Not using a chainsaw, presumably?
A pruner.
Okay.
Full stop.
Sounds dangerous.
Somebody could cut an arm off. Okay, any other thoughts?
Well, apart from maybe the ironwood, I don't think we need any budget for next year. I mean, got some wood to do minor repairs. We've got some tools to do minor repairs.
So do you guys think that bridge needs repaired next year, replaced
Well, I don't
next year?
think, I mean, my opinion is it doesn't really matter what we think. I mean, this committee thinks that we should be able to build boardwalk, and insurance companies won't let us, so if we think the bridge needs repair, it's gonna have to be determined by them and the township staff itself to sort of say that it needs repair. Like, I mean, we agreed that it needed repair 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
But, you know, the money being when it was, the bridge that got repaired and replaced a few weeks ago was determined to be the #1 priority. So I mean, I think the committee has already done their job in identifying that that's an issue going forward.
So is that an ask from the committee to have a capital budget for a bridge replacement?
Well, probably.
Yeah, I think
Discuss
that's,
it a bit
that's
further.
fair to bring to council's attention.
So as council, Lance, maybe I can direct this to you. Has council spent any time thinking about what sort of budget allocation needs to be made for the things like this going forward? I mean, if we costed out the bridge replacement that was done by R&J Machine, to do it ourselves, we costed out a little over $1,000. But the final bill for the R&J Machine was 15,000? 13. Has council thought about what this means going forward? I mean, traditionally, we've received about $6,000 of taxpayers' money. And from what I've been told from numerous councillors and people in the last decade of me being on this committee, that, you know, we use the money, money well spent.
Yeah.
If we're now looking at a 10 times, 13 times increase in the cost of volunteers doing it and the cost of insured contractors doing it, does that mean you're going to budget that kind of money, or does it mean more likely that less and less will be done on the trails because we can't afford to make such infrastructure improvements or new additions?
Well, speaking for myself, I think that first and foremost, Chris, thanks very much, and I do appreciate that you simply are the messenger.
Yeah.
And this isn't, if you had a choice, maybe would be or would not be your decision. You're handcuffed by the insurance company liability, and we're only gonna be moving further and further away from any type of personal abilities for these types of communities to be able to, in effect, take on the responsibilities of what we're now deemed to be doing only minor projects. That being the case, then I think that we're best served for now to do between the time we have now and when we have to submit for council's considerations. Let's do a full postmortem of the inventory of everything we have. Let's do a 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year, best case in a perfect world project that we can have. And then let's put in the largest ask that we can have to begin with. Speaking from my position on council, I would be first and foremost to recommend increasing the budget and finding assets or revenues to allocate to continue on with what we're doing with the MVR or the Millbrook Valley Trails. That being said as well, with the new project that's gonna happen where the hockey rink is gonna be coming down, I foresee myself a huge opportunity to partner with the trail system and what council ideally hopes to build in that community, that we can tie it in to make it more of a recreational hub, an educational hub, a cultural hub. The recreational and the educational tie in directly with what the trail system wants to do. So that in itself, I can see a cause and effect to want council to have to allocate larger monies moving forward for these types of projects. If we know that something like this, and you said we've been asking for years for this one bridge, and then we prioritize where money's been coming that way, then we need to increase the budget. Well, and I'll be the one to lobby as the advocate on behalf of that. Maybe it might be a 1 to 4 vote, a 3 to 2 vote, however, 5, nothing in favor. But I'll certainly spearhead it to see that, what we want to do on this committee. I would be really upset to see what everyone's doing here go away, because this trail system's only gonna get bigger and better, in my opinion.
Okay, well, let's be clear. First of all, I don't know that we've asked for that bridge to be replaced. I mean, we certainly identified it as a need, but we haven't. I guess my concern would be, do you foresee
situations where trails would be closed permanently or very long term because a bridge needs to be replaced and the money simply isn't there. And because qualified contractors now need to do it instead of volunteers, it's gonna cost XXX times more. And the money's not there because of whatever, because the arena's coming down and the money's allocated to other things for this year, next year, whatever. Is that a foreseeable
I foresee that there would be more money to increase to the budget that council would have to consider to bumping up the budget. If we have money to build fire halls, which are a necessity to meet growth in the community, the trail system and recreation is something that has to fall in lockstep. So I don't think it's something that council is gonna consider to kick to the curb. I certainly wouldn't. I think of anything that the more people and communities that you're bringing to this community, the more the trail system is going to be utilized. And to tell you the honest truth, I think it's undermarketed. I think that there's an opportunity, and I've been talking with Bridget on a bigger ideal project that, it may not happen by the time I'm done in the next 2 years, but it can definitely be in, we do a 5 to 10 year addition to what the kind of like master plan for tourism to Ward 3 in Millbrook itself specifically will look like, but the trail system, I think, would be a huge part of that, so.
Okay, so where would you see a committee like that fitting into those talks?
Well, I think that you guys, as it strictly, exists right now as an advisory committee, and the fact that the town has worked with you guys for years and years to allow you to do these construction projects. There's just no way that it's ever going to go swing the opposite direction back to where they're gonna allow us to be able to do any kinds of major projects like that. So as long as the committee, we can identify what it is that we want done, prioritize when it needs to be done, when we would like it to be done, then council can put in the forethought of, okay, this year the budget needs to be $65,000. In the following year, we'll have to replace this, this, and this. The budget will have to increase to $110,000. And I think that the community itself can have a voice in steering maybe the direction the council should consider things by having a public forum. We can have it out so that the community can come and look and go, look, I walk my dogs, I moved to this community specifically because of the great amenities of recreational purposes that we have. It's only gonna get busier. I think that once you hear the community speak, that council would be, unless people don't have, the interest to wanna run again and get elected again, I myself haven't made a decision whether I want to or I don't want to, but if I chose that I didn't want to, I still would come and vote in support of adding money to the budget for the trail system.
Yeah, okay, I guess, with the caveat that there's only a finite amount of money, right? And there's.
I think as though, and John will totally get to your question. I think that as long as that we get our ducks in a row and we identify what it is that we need, I'll come with you or, whatever. I can't stand beside you while you're presenting to council, but you can have John there as well. And, I'll speak individually with the other people and voice that, I don't want to speak out of turn and say that this person would be in favor of that person. I have an understanding and an inclination of how that would go. And I would be shocked if we didn't have the support to see them want to increase the budget for next year.
Okay, John.
Well, I think we have gotten in the habit of thinking if we don't build a bridge, the trail's not going to happen. But if we think over I wasn't here for the inception of Millbrook Valley Trails, and they wouldn't have got built in the first place if people hadn't been capable of building the bridge and all that sort of stuff. But the idea for the expansion of the trails, like the one from Station, expanding the Ganny down, or expanding down to Yellen, down toward the Ganaraska Park, which now we're backstepped because we don't have the link to Ganaraska, but eventually that may come back. But the idea is the importance, I guess, is really the ideas. The ideas that Dave's been working on, thinking about the number of mountain biking trails, you know, I mean, you did the work, but if the township's willing to put up the money, for example, we should be coming up with ideas. We don't even have to suggest in our budget how much it would cost to replace the bridge at the old school or the other bridge. But we have to be willing to say that those bridges are going to have to be replaced. And then it's, you know, I'm I did enjoy working on the bridges and building the trails and that sort of stuff, but I do understand that times have changed. I don't know whether there's such a thing as getting enough training that we could be allowed to be considered competent for, you know, like the simple thing of building a trail. That might be a suggestion from the committee that be explored.
Yeah.
And then we
Is
could,
that something that's a possibility, Chris, or something?
They were
where it
looking
gets
for licensed
certification?
contractors.
so we can't get a license as an individual and be.
You could get a contractor license if you so wish to.
What about,
Sorry, and we couldn't ourselves have a contractor join the committee for the fact that it would have to be publicly tendered, so we can't guarantee ourselves that it would be that contractor doing the work.
It would have to be,
It would have to
depending
be-
on the price quoted
Yeah.
out, tendered RFP.
Yeah.
Depending on whether bridge boardwalk, the price, yeah.
So ultimately, then we're going to turn into a kind of like, you know, I guess in a perfect world, a glorified steering committee. Or these are.
Advisory
these are-
committee, which
yeah,
is what,
Yeah, which is what we are.
which is what it is, an
Yeah.
advisory committee.
so again, Chris, I appreciate you may not have all the answers, but just a hypothetical, if we identified a new location for a new trail or a new loop or something off an existing trail, would we be allowed to create said trail minus the infrastructure in terms of, you know, tagging the initial layout, going through clearing, stuff that we've done, you know, in the past, or would that need to be done by?
Yeah, it's sort of, it depends where the trail is, what it is, does it need trees removed, does it need bridges, does it need boardwalks, does it
No, but I'm
all
saying-
have to
I'm
be
saying-
assessed?
I'm saying it was just sort of
Just walking through and
Clearing-
marking where you'd like
clearing-
to see it?
clearing scrub and saplings, that sort of thing, and like, are we down to that level? Of needing
Brush and
professional
trimming.
contractors?
No, brush and pruning, as I mentioned before, you can prune, you can brush, you can remove weeds.
But even potentially on new reps.
Rob, it would depend on what it is, Rob, I can't tell you.
No, I
what the
appreciate that.
road
I
is.
just-
Yeah, if you had an example.
Yeah.
We'd be able to walk through it, but.
Okay.
It's,
Well, what we're used to being able to do is to sort of seeing the potential for the route by looking often with Bridget or someone else who can help us show us where the potential is.
Okay.
And walking through it and then walking through with the surveyors, so that we get a sense for what our road margins are.
yeah, so you're not
And then-
constructing anything. it's-
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
And then choosing in that area between those 66 feet where the trail can go.
Yeah.
So that's through road allowance. But there are other trails that could be used as connector trails to get much, much better traffic control and a much better experience between the trails that are already existing and they aren't on road allowance. We're also not very used to trying to bring our natural trail, or more like wild trail, through like a suburban system, which does offer more accessibility, granted, it does. I mean, to have almost a paved or a semi-paved type surface for people to meander through. But we're not used to that. We've not done that before. The sole exception is the extension of station toward Tupper and up toward the Highland development. But we really are used to bushwhacking and, you know, having people with vision who can actually see how the lines are going to go through and how to have it happen without trees coming down. or with so few trees coming down, it's remarkable. And those trees are then utilized as part of the trail system. That's what we're used to. And all of that is done on foot without big machinery.
Yeah, so
We'd
that's fine.
almost-
You're not
yeah.
constructing anything. There's no bridges, boardwalks.
Mhm.
I think that, so if you, from a budgeting perspective, so if we take the example of a trail like Canny Transit, that, you know, we built for $2,000 in wood and a whole bunch of volunteer labor. And I think that if, in the future, if we were to not have volunteer labor to rely on, either because we can't or because they're no longer motivated, that a trail like that would cost us $50,000 to build, and more, actually, if you contracted with the bridges, you know, 70, 80,000, maybe $100,000. So I guess that's what I'm wondering about as this conversation is happening, is like, you know, we're used to a $4,000 or $5,000 budget because all the labor is free. And once you switch to paying for labor, it gets really expensive. So if there are any plans for new trails in the future, you know, that budget's like, it's not anywhere near enough. So we would suddenly be shifting into this, and I think this is what maybe Lance was saying as well, like we're suddenly shifting into like orders of magnitude higher in terms of budget, because we're no longer using volunteer labor, or we're no longer able to motivate the volunteer labor to come out. And so that's a risk. But if that's the new territory that we're entering, you know, being okay with building and maintaining a trail network that has a budget of 100 grand or 50 grand, then okay, I can shift my brain to operate under those parameters. But if we're still in this like, oh yeah, 5,000, 7,000, whatever, using volunteer labor, but not for this, but a little bit for this, like, I think a lot of people in this room are just losing their motivation. And then that will spread out to the community. So, but if we are shifting into this new world where everything's paid for and we have the money to pay those bills, then, you know, okay. But our budget would need to be much higher.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Dave. I think, you know, I'm worried about the future of this trail system, right? Because Dave said, if we wanted to build another Canny Transit, it would cost a lot more than $100,000. By the time we're all said and done. And I think the township knows this. They've got a tremendous amount of goodwill from the people around this table, but also the dozens and dozens of people that come to our work days, that leave comments on social media saying how much they appreciate the trails and all the work done on them. The people that stop us on the trails and say thank you. And I think we need to be, you know, going forward, be very careful not to negate or lose that motivation. But
I don't wanna be cynical, but I don't see how that's not gonna happen. As soon as the insurance companies are stepping in, and I'm not in favor of this, don't get me wrong, guys, I'm completely sharing exactly the same sentiment that you guys are, but, and I'm not crapping on you, Chris, in any way, because that's just unfortunately the way of the world now. With, you know, you can't leave kids in parks anymore, and schools won't open pools, and everything is all liability, everything is insurance, we're all being managed. And more so our opportunities and freedoms, and, you know, this is a small freedom of how we all took it upon ourselves to work collectively as a community. You could wave all that volunteer goodwill out the window, and now suddenly it's taxpayers' dollars and a hell of a lot more than that for them to go into doing projects that now there's no pride of community, because we've just killed everyone's motivation, as you just put, Dave. I can't see that that's not gonna happen. You can set your watch to it, that is gonna happen.
well, that's
And
my
it's very
concern.
sad, and I don't want it to happen, Rob, either, but I just, and it's, once again, don't shoot the messenger, but there's no way we're putting that cow back in the barn. That's never going to reverse, it's only gonna get more regulated and more government control.
Right, so let me just use an example that we've been talking about for the last few years, about the possibility of building the loop from Baxter Creek Trail to the Fairgrounds Trail. that we, had marked out and started bushwhacking prior to COVID, and then, things happened and we're not there yet. Now we're being told that, we'd have to get permission, which we always needed permission. I mean, the permission's sort of already there because we've started the work. But we'd have to get contracted services into a much more remote location than either of the two projects that were done this summer, right? And so what that would cost and, the survey work, all of this sort of thing. If I'm stepping outside of my role here as chair, and I've been chair for many years, as a taxpayer in the township of Cavan, if you're telling me that we're gonna build a 1 kilometer loop and it's gonna cost $140,000, I'm gonna say to myself, well, hang on. Like, that money could be much better spent in the community probably, or, and I'm chair of this committee, right? So, like, imagine people who have never sat around this table and, are watching every dollar and wanting to, make sure that their tax dollars are well spent. Like, I think we're up against a pretty tall wall here.
So with that being said, coming from the other side, so you said this bridge was 10 times more expensive than if you bought it. Or if you built it.
Mhm.
Now, if you built it and there was an injury there, now the litigation is gonna be astronomical.
Right, but in the history of
So this
us
is-
building bridges and
This is
boardwalks,
insurance.
how many
Like,
litigations have there been?
Well, here's the simplicity. If we were to build this, we would never get insurance on it though. So then it's 1 million, you're 100% liable. Or at least with the way that the new system's going to work, there will be insurance, there will be coverage, and if there ever is a claim, then it's not gonna be at the forsaking, the having to close the whole system down because there's been one accident and now we can no longer get
we've
insurance.
done our due
coverage.
diligence, we have hired the professional contractor. It's all to par.
Sorry, is there an opportunity, because one thing we haven't discussed since we're looking at budgeting, if we're gonna do larger capital projects like this, is there funding that we could, is this a Bridget question, is this a you question? Is this a Kimberly question for provincial or federal funding that could help us assist where we could do like major capital projects? So if this is a $250,000 2 or 3 kilometer trail addition or expansion, so that this doesn't come out of the taxpayers' dollars directly to the municipality, or do we know anything about that?
There's always funding that comes up here and then.
Yeah, okay.
Identifying it in your budget or if we're sort of shovel ready on.
Yep.
So the floating bridge, that was an example. It was fully funded through RTO 08 grant.
Is
So
that
there's
then
$42,000 bridge that
Is
was
that
funded.
your role then? Would we liaison directly with you, or is, like, that was my question then, forward funding, how do we identify it? Is it you directly to go, hey, Yvette, Parks Canada is offering blah, 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 or, Trillium has this available, or.
If you know there is one, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Bring it forward, bring it to
Yeah.
any of us, yeah.
But I guess
Yeah,
further
so
to
we
Kurt's
do-
point
We
originally.
do search it out ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
All the time.
But is that you then, because it's Parks and Rec related, or just all of the staff are always constantly?
We search out and we do have grant match
Yeah.
that notifies us too as well
Okay.
when grants come in.
But I guess further to Kurt's point originally, I mean, you need the people around this table to help with that.
Yeah.
I would suggest having one foot in both camps. We have to have the list of projects so that Chris knows 2 years ahead of time, because I'm pretty cynical about the way you get the provincial and federal money. Because sometimes there's an election coming and somebody wants to make a point and the money's suddenly available. If Chris knows that the bridge at the old Millbrook school needed to be built next year, if he doesn't know it needs to be rebuilt next year, he's not ready to put in an offer or an application. If he knows that's ready to be done, if we know it's 3 years away and the opportunity comes up 2 years from now, then he's ready to put in the application. If he doesn't know until the year of, then he can't put in an application because doesn't have a shovel-ready project. If he knows what he's up against. So we can, if we know what we want, then we've gotta have 5 projects ready to go, and when the money is available, Chris can be ready to slide in the application.
Okay, no, okay, well, let's, getting back to the 2025 budget discussion, I think we need some time to sit on this and think. I think if the initial thought is, you know, we might need a few dollars for contracted services. Again, I mean, I'm not sure in terms of actual materials. Yeah, I mean, we're not allowed to build anything. We're allowed to replace things here and there. We've got wood already. I'm not comfortable making a motion yet in terms of what we present on November 27th to council. But, John?
I think whether any of us are sitting on the committee next year, because we're suddenly annoyed and leave, or not, there are going to be weeds that need to be sprayed, and I hope Maureen here is here to draw that to our attention come next spring. So I think we should at least be giving notice that we're going to need at least that much, and probably the way everything's going.
Right, but if I'm playing devil's advocate, shouldn't the township know that there's gonna be weeds next year and it needs to be sprayed? I mean,
Well-
why do they need us to tell them that?
That's our advisory role. And it's not a nail stuff together role, but if nobody's out there to notice that there's a new patch of dog strangling vine that should be dealt with.
But how long till we're not allowed to be out there to notify them?
Well, we had,
Sorry, Chair Jackson, just for you to know, like, this town staff is aware of this and this is actively discussed in the committee for the work plan. For instance, we do actually have a new item from the last meeting on invasive species management, and this committee members and the staff have conversations. So there is some work going on per se, but its main role is as advisory committee. So there is this conversation is ongoing. So we do have this dialogue, so it's not.
there won't, if this committee is not here to advise that we need that loop, then it won't get advised and it won't get done, would be my thought. If the committee's not here, we're still trying to build a better bike system in some areas. If it's not here to say we need to make that loop complete, then if there's nobody here to say it, it won't get done. So, I mean, I'm disappointed because I think we could build Boardwalk, but on the other hand, I think we can do
Maybe
something
we
else.
look at it, like our walk away today, we can take time enough for our next meeting to kind of do a rinse and repeat, and we can kind of identify things as a micro and macro. So micro is next year's budget, and these maintenance related, we don't wanna, not, as you just said right now, that should be already, okay, we'll rinse and repeat, add $200 to each capital contracted services, 200 for supplies. We can figure out in the next meeting and before we present in November, how that will look to council. And then from the macro standpoint, let's get a strategic plan together of what the major projects are that we want to see done in the next 5 years. Try to kind of have an understanding of working with Chris, what costs will be to budget for that, so that when we do present in Thursday in November, this is what we need for next year, this is what we hope to happen for the next 5 years. And come this time in a year from now, if the only person that's left on this committee is me and Maureen, and I hope everyone, however it all works out, and 5 years from now, maybe all these great things have happened and everyone's super jazzed and no one's, we don't have to, lift a tool anymore, and that's unfortunate because so many people do enjoy that. It's going to change. So we can look right now and be cynical and pessimistic and say, I don't like what it's going to become. Well, we don't know yet what it has become. So I think we're best served right now just to figure out what we need immediately for next year, and we can all work together and, like we just did our strategic plan workshop the last 2 weeks with council. And it was like, at the very end of it all, was like, what would your pie in the sky dream be? And, some people that were participating were saying movie studio and, do something with the jail hill, let's make a decision on that, and employment lands and all these different things. Well, I think if we as this committee here come up with a decision of what we want to see happen in the next 5 years and be ambitious, it's like, let's add 3 kilometers of trail lines and new trails going through the subdivision phase 2, and by that time, phase 3 is probably gonna be started, and think big, and if none of us are on that committee 2 years from now, then it'll be what it is. If it dies on the vine, it's gonna be that way as well.
Okay, can I ask a question then, relating to this? In the spring of 2024, we were seriously talking about replacing the bridge on Baxter Creek. That R&J machine replaced a few weeks ago. We were asked as a committee to cost that bridge out, how much it would cost for us to do it. We did that work, it came back to you, then we were told that we're no longer allowed to build bridges. It had to be done by a certified contractor. That went through, that was all approved, and in June of 2024, our last meeting, that was the status quo. And there was never, to my recollection, there was never any talk about not being able to build boardwalk. Now, in September of 2024, we're being told that we're not allowed to build boardwalk. I feel like we're being spoon-fed information. In terms of the township's knowledge of what the insurance company's requirements are going to be, is there anything else you're not telling us that we will or will not be able to do in the coming future?
Through you, Chair, no, I did not withhold anything prior to this. From the talks we've had with insurance, boardwalks and bridges will be constructed by contractors.
Okay, maybe it was my.
Anything else, I.
Okay, no, it's fair,
speak to it at
maybe
this time.
it was my not remembering, but I don't remember having a discussion around boardwalk, that boardwalk.
First time I'm hearing of this, about boardwalks, is right here.
Yeah.
So it's honestly something Chris is keeping something from him, or if that's the case, then it's keeping it from you and from council. And I'm only joking with that.
So, as far as you're aware right now, this committee is allowed to replace broken boards on existing boardwalk,
As far as I know right now, yes.
trim limbs and weeds and spread mulch.
Correct.
What about? Okay,
We're allowed to imagine and envision what we might want to have happen here in the future. There's a lot of stuff.
Just to clarify, so that is included in proposed capital projects. For instance, a bridge for potentially for 2026 was discussed in the committee over here. If they think that meets the needs of the committee, that is within the purview. Some of our other committees do actually have capital projects, not to the dollar amount of this, but it is within the purview of the committee. You know the trails better than almost anybody else in this community, so you understand what the needs are of it, and you can advise on the nature of the projects. Chris?
yeah, I think we understand that, but I guess further to the question, again, hypothetical situation, Chris, and again, I appreciate you may not have the answer to this. If we determine, for instance, that the bridge at the old school can be fixed to the requirements set out by the township, the insurance company, whoever it may be, by replacing one part of the substructure, so one of the 6x6s, and, replacing the boardwalk part, would that be considered a replacement or reconstruction? I guess my question is, do you know where the line is drawn?
Hypothetically, I think with the bridge you're talking about, it is the same age as the bridge we just replaced, and I think trying to replace one board in that structure, one beam, I think that bridge.
Okay, so
is
let's
due
use an
for
easier.
full replacement. It
I
is
appreciate that. Let's use an
probably
easier
30
example.
years old.
What, 2024, but yeah, let's use an easier example of a boardwalk, say the S boardwalk past the new bridge, right? One section of it, they're built in 8-foot sections because that's how we get the cedar, right? So we've got 2 8-foot cedar runners with cedar boardwalk on top of it. Let's say the runners of that boardwalk rotted out, as wood does, cedar, it's wet. The runners need to be replaced, and then we put new boardwalk on top of it. Is that contracted services job, or is that something?
Through you, Chair, honestly, it'd have to be inspected at the time.
Okay, so that's
It's
what
not a
we're
question
working
I can answer.
Okay, so if we identify something like that needs to be done, we need to come to you and say, hey, can we do this or not? And then you need to come back and tell us whether or not that's gonna be feasible.
That'd be correct.
Okay.
Can we maybe get something from you, from your staff and from the township that is in writing, that specifies the, you know, definition of what minor work entails and then what sits outside of that, so that, you know, everyone can kind of have a visual copy of what that means, not just all we're talking about it here.
Yeah.
That would be-
So I think
that would be
with
very
the
helpful.
discussion today, I think, yes, I think there will probably need a little stronger guideline, maybe more follow-up with insurance, and so it is bridges and boardwalks at this time. And so if you would like us to follow up further and
So at this time, does the insurance company have the remit to sort of change things whenever they want?
we just did bridges and boardwalks because that's what we were doing, Rob. That's what we were building this year. We were building a bridge. and
No, I appreciate that, but
And
can,
you requested to do it. We followed up with insurance. Insurance said contractors.
okay, but does the insurance company have the ability to come back and say at any time, well, now they're not allowed to prune trees? Just as an example.
I
Or
can't
is there-
answer these questions, Rob. This is the
Okay,
insurance.
no, but I guess what I'm asking, Chris, is there like a yearly or a monthly or a quarterly sit down with the insurance company in terms of how you're fed this information, or like, I just don't understand how the process works.
There's no sit down and if we had an issue come up, we contact the insurance.
So it's a project by
There could
project
be-
basis.
There could be a million different issues throughout the township. We don't sit down and talk about every sector and every section, every boardwalk, every playground. So if we have an issue, we will follow up with that issue.
Okay, so it's an issue by issue basis.
Yes.
Okay, Kirk?
Further to Lance's point of coming up with some more clear guidelines, I'd be really curious if you could ask a specific question to the insurance company. Would we be allowed to replace a single piece of boardwalk on a bit of boardwalk that has been constructed by a licensed contractor?
Good point.
Because essentially all the boardwood's going to become and to be replaced, put in by a license. So it's essentially, if we can't replace a single board, that's. But obviously, I'm sure you understand, Chris, but specifically of something that has been put in by a licensed contractor.
Yeah, if somebody comes along tomorrow and breaks the new board on the new bridge, does R&J Machine have to come back and fix it, or can we do it?
I think that's a really important point of
But then,
clarification.
I guess the next question would be,
Whether it's
If
inside
we-
the warranty or not.
if we fix it, do we still have to pay somebody to come out to certify the work? Or would you yourself and staff from Parks and Rec be able to go, okay, that's compliant with code and everything else? Because it would make no sense for us for you to waste your time when we're still gonna have to pay someone whatever, a couple $100 per hour, for them to come out and smile and, oh yeah, they nailed that down real good.
Yeah.
So I think we need to definitely have a better understanding of, and maybe if that's the case as well, Rob, come up with a couple of scenarios where you can envision minor variances in whatever the scopes of work are, and then you can send that to Chris, and then we can kind of have a better understanding of like, okay, this is the simplest of tasks and this is the most complex of tasks.
Well, yeah,
Where does
agreed.
that fall?
But I think the other side of the coin is I don't think anybody around this table wants to get in trouble. Like, what if I go out to walk my dog and I see that a board is broken? And I'm like, oh, okay, I just run back to my shop, I've got some wood and I fix it as I have for the last 12 years. Am I gonna get in trouble for that? I'm being facetious.
So-
We understand my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will follow up on that, but I believe I did mention earlier that replacing a board was okay. But I will double check,
But what-
I will
That
double
is a
check on it, but
specific
a board
difference,
replacement.
yeah?
Yeah, so I will double check, yes.
Okay.
But that was mentioned earlier, that board replacement's all right, trimming,
In general,
yes, it's the construction of boardwalks and bridges right now.
What about other assets on the trail system, such as like benches or like the boxes for the maps that we're gonna put up? Like, is that stuff all allowed to be built by the committee, or is it just structural things?
I think we're gonna have to,
Yeah,
we're getting in too deep here, like it's sort of getting off track.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna have to do a little deeper investigation, and we'll have to pinpoint it down, I guess.
I think it's interesting and kind of paradoxical, certainly ironic, that as the health community is beginning to move toward the belief that we need more roughness in our lives. And, you know, children in particular, young adults and teens need more risk-taking in their lives. And that includes more physical risk. We're being told that, you know, everything has to be ultra safe and that you're trying to prevent any possible injury instead of saying, you know, by stepping on this trail, you've essentially signed a waiver. You're entering a wild space or a semi-wild space, and there is some inherent risk. And you can't prevent
Do you know what?
someone
Actually,
slipping on a
they-
mold.
They have
Mold.
parks in London, England and in New York City that have like jagged nails and it's like more or less going into like demolished construction sites.
Mhm.
And they actually have them as parks for children to play in.
Yeah,
And the parents sign a waiver of liability and they're like, actually, I want my child to be in a, you know, I don't obviously want them to have to like cut themselves and have to go and get stitches or whatever, but you know, that is a part of, so the
Yeah.
fact that it swings both like, obviously, that's a
but that's what I'm
exception to
getting.
the rule, but I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So can I
Sorry.
ask one last question, Chris? And I'm sorry, trying not to put you on the spot. This is for my own understanding. In terms of work, like just maintenance, minor maintenance that we're allowed to do, is there any preference? So I've always viewed the minor maintenance as if we don't do it, it won't get done. And I've never viewed it as, we should tell the township about this or they'll do it, unless it's something like that's the type of work you're already doing, like weed whacking and chainsaw work. But like from the township's perspective, do you know if we're doing this work because we like it and we have permission to do it? Or is it that you need us to do it? Does the township need us to do some of the work that we're doing?
I think
That we're
from the standpoint is it's past practice, so many years ago. That's the way it was, the maintenance was done, volunteers did it, I'm not saying anybody's not doing a great job, like, everybody's doing a great job, but past practice. Years ago, you could do all the work, it's just the time and age nowadays, I'm not saying that you're not doing a great job, it's just.
No, I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is that are we in some aspects of this, we're the most qualified people to do the work? And that the township staff doesn't have those qualifications. And so in a sense, we're needed.
Or are you asking if the township has enough bandwidth to do the,
Well,
to do the work?
I guess
we're
I'm
doing?
wondering if it's shifted so that we're strictly advisory and the township staff does all the work. Is the staff qualified to do, like from a trail building perspective? Like I understand that they can trim and they can cut and clear. But you know, we have a lot of experience with like building trail, like not just cutting a path through the woods, but actually designing a trail. And so is the township, I guess, do you feel like your staff is qualified to do all aspects of trail maintenance, or is there a desire for the township to train their staff through I don't know, courses or whatever for trail building and design?
Designing the trail is advisory, you guys can advise on designing a trail.
But would it,
Staff can go out and staff can cut trees, staff can weed eat, staff can clear brush.
okay.
So it is an advisory committee, so if you think you need a new trail, it's nothing you can't do to advise on where this trail should go.
And then staff would build the trail?
It all depends on the trail, where it is and what we need, what kind of equipment is needed for the trail.
Okay.
I think the
I
what
guess
Chris is saying is in good faith that staff still wants to continue to work and respects the input that the committee has to provide. I can't see that they wouldn't just disregard our expertise. And I understand what you're saying, where you want to like, hey, you know, we know best, but if you're just gonna disregard what we are already being able to offer, then as well, are you gonna disregard our conceptual knowledge to it all?
Well, and I guess I'm not thinking that it would be disregarded, but like if like this is labor, and so if we can do the design work and then advise staff on how to carry it out, you know, is staff able to do that? Are they well qualified to do that? Or is it that we are actually the only ones who are well qualified to do that work?
To do the labor work.
To do
The design
skill- the
is,
skill-
that's well in your scope.
I know, but maybe I don't know if maybe I may not have a complete thought in my head. It's just that I'm wondering if we cease all labor, is the township able to maintain this trail system properly? Or are we needed to actually do that work? Like, I think we're needed, but I also think that if we're heading in the direction that it seems like we're heading, then all of this work will eventually shift to township staff. And I think it needs to be recognized that there is a particular skill set that's there that needs to be developed within the township if we are strictly advisory.
To the chair, briefly, I just want to speak to the committee. I'm not trying to place a heavy hand on the conversation. This is a budget discussion, and this, I understand it's the kind of the scope of the work of the committee is somewhat tied to what your budget proposal is, but let's try moving it towards, I would advise try moving towards that rather than the overall terms of the reference of the committee. I know you guys are trying to understand what you are trying to do in terms of works and materials for that, but
So maybe we're best to add this to 7.3 for items for next meeting then.
Yeah.
Just continue it with budget for right now.
yes.
Okay, so. Yeah, I don't think we're willing to. Put forth any numbers or motions today into the budget discussion, are we correct in presuming that? Okay.
Sorry, Chair, to be clear, are you proposing that we defer the budget discussion to a following meeting? No.
Not deferring. We've had a very lengthy budget discussion. And as I said at the beginning of the item 7.1, I think we've got our October meeting to continue to set discussion.
Okay, so you're not proposing you're not putting any motion forward for an operating budget or anything
I
right
can't put
now?
a motion forward as chair. Does anybody have a motion they'd like to put forward?
Would the motion not be to defer it to our next, to make a decision?
Yeah.
Until.
That's what I meant by defer,
Yeah.
just to clarify.
Yeah.
I think you might have just misunderstood.
Okay, well, I don't understand why we would need a motion to continue a discussion, because won't this, can't we put 2025 budget discussion continuing in items for our October meeting?
Yes, I would like a motion for that, just from a procedural standpoint, because this is a significant item and I
Okay,
think.
I'll make a motion to defer to decision,
Somebody like,
for further review at our meeting next month.
somebody like to second that? Marie, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chair.
Well, it might be a moot point, but let's go on to 7.2 in the work plan. Nothing to add for number one. Does anybody have anything to add for number one? Number two? You have anything to add for number two, Elaine? No? Number three, anybody have anything to add? Any update from staff, Chris?
No update yet.
Number four,
I think we're still waiting to hear from Ganaraska as far as I know.
thank you. Number five, no update. Number six. No update other than to thank the township staff for putting back the trailhead at Distillery Street. It looks great. That went up. July, June, July. Yeah, not very much appreciated, as we said at the time. We moved to number seven, please, thank you. Number seven, Dave. No update. Thank you. Number eight, ongoing, they are in my workshop, I've got a number of the pamphlet boxes done. Perhaps we'll need to wait until discussion at the next meeting to see what we're allowed to do and not do in terms of the committee, in terms of completing that project.
Do we, sorry to interrupt there, Chair, do we want to remove, and bag dispensers since those have been now completed and it's just strictly just design a pamphlet? Just for the clarity of it, or
Well, no, we're using the same boxes for pamphlets and bag expenses.
Okay,
It's the same. One design works for two functions, I suppose. Number 9, 10, 11, and 12 are completed. Or sorry, my mistake. Number 8, 9, number 9, I need my glasses, 10, 11 are completed. Number 12, management of invasive species. Any update on that? Other than the spraying has been completed as of August of this year.
Usually at this time, I would have an update as to how complete the spray success has been, but I've been distracted by illness and death in the family in the month of August, so I haven't been out as widely walking on the trail, but I will finish my walk around and get back to you at the next meeting as to how things went. Everywhere I have walked, the sprays has been very effective.
Thank you.
Can we go back to number 6? Just the signage and brochures. Are we doing new trailhead signage? I just wonder if, are we ever gonna do anything about that, or should staff be working on that and telling us what they propose? I don't.
Well, yeah, I think the brochure updates with the Photoshop need to be done first, and then that will translate into reprinting of the pamphlets, and then we would use, as we have in the past, use the map and verbiage from the pamphlets on new trailhead signage. But that would be, maybe that's a good question for you, Chris, given the 7.1 budget discussion. Would that be something that we would include potentially in the budget discussion and an ask, or would that be above and beyond and need to go to council to ask for? Because it would certainly cost more than the $6,000 you got in the past.
So you're looking for new trailhead signs or just the insert to put in the trailhead signs that are there? Like a new panel to put in? So that would be something that could be covered under materials and supplies.
Okay,
So that wouldn't be a huge expense.
well. Yeah, not huge, but not
Like I
super
would,
cheap either.
I would think $200-300 a side.
Well, I think they were more than that last time, but yeah, okay. I think maybe we were discussing, reminding committee we wanted, oh, yes, potentially one new trailhead signage, trailhead structure at the old school. Because remember during COVID, we got that sort of temporary one on 2x4s, so I think we'd like one in the design of the others, like you did at Distillery Street.
Yeah, so that'd be materials and supplies as well. It's
Yeah,
a couple $100 in
and
lumber.
potentially one at the fairgrounds, correct? What we talked about,
Mhm.
and is there one at? Dave, there isn't, is there, and one at Elbridge?
Oh, there's nothing on there.
Yeah, so we want one at Elbridge, potentially 3 new trails, and signs. We want one at the parking lot. Where else, what am I missing? One of the trout ponds, there's fourth line, do we need one on the side, one side of the street there?
Advised that like 2 rail reports prior, so like 8 months ago, I recommended the signage for the.
Well, there is new signage at that location, Lance, just the routed signs.
Okay.
That we did. But I guess I'm speaking just maybe that requires a discussion, if the committee thinks we need a sign. What we call it, trailhead sign like we have at the end of Distillery Street, like a proper 6x6 post thing with an aluminum thing on one or both sides of the fourth line. Yes, no.
I'd like to see.
Meaning
that.
the rail bed entrance? Or
The entrance off the fourth line,
oh, I see what you mean,
Yeah.
the north side of the fourth line.
or south,
Yeah, okay.
or both.
Mhm,
Anyway, something we can think about for our discussions.
mhm.
So I was just bringing that up because I think in the past, we would have, as a committee, worked with a graphic designer. And then we would have sat around the table and tried to come up with a plan for, is that still how we want to approach this? Or does the
Yeah, I think-
township want to just, we have an existing brochure, they can talk to graphic designers and come up with a sign design? And we can
Okay.
give feedback on that. I don't know. I just,
I think it would be the committee would design the sign and township would have final approval on the sign. And this would be a budget item for you. If you need 5 signs, work out how much the signs are, how much the lumber's gonna be. And that would be one of your asks for your 2025 budget.
Could we also include the addition of a license for Photoshop in budget ask? Is there any concerns around something like that? Like, because I think that's been the hiccup with updating the brochures to date is that we don't have Photoshop.
Yeah, that would be added to the budget.
Yeah.
On request.
I think there's a single license to use Photoshop.
Yeah. We'd have to look into that because it'd be a personal.
Yes.
Be a
Yeah, that's where it's been
personal
getting hung up.
computer, right? Like if, like maybe if we have something up here that could help. If staff has something that, the committee could come out and sit with the committee and.
Okay.
We might be able to work it that way, but, to purchase for your personal.
Yeah, that would be a hard problem. This is probably something where you could have a mock-up and then you work with staff in a subcommittee to, work through the process. Iron things out.
Chris, my laptop for council's property in the township, would that imply if they put Photoshop on that? And then I would allow the computer to be, no, but then I'd have to share the computer with another private, no, that wouldn't work. Okay. Nope, sorry.
you could have a trails.
Unless you
committee
were a graphic
laptop.
designer and we could consult with you and, but that
Well,
wouldn't
we
be
have to
allowed
tell the-
either. It's been such a holdup. Like, it's been months and months and months, waiting to get the brochures done.
I think
And it
Photoshop
could
is
be
the only.
something, Chris, where we could have, someone from our committee here have access to a computer here in the township office that.
Well, that's what I was sort of thinking, like whether it needs to come up and sit with a staff member.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So what is the issue with the Photoshop?
It's just the initial, this map was done on Photoshop by a graphic designer at Big Sky.
Oh, Rob.
It's Rob
Yeah.
at Big Sky. And we just need to make some minor changes to it prior to the next printing of the pamphlets.
So can this not be reviewed with the designer?
We're trying to be cost effective with taxpayer dollars.
That particular company often does provide reduced rates for volunteer groups.
what? I
So
use-
a quote would probably
I
be the
use
easiest
Rob
way
as
to
my
go.
own for my company. I personally don't mind paying for us to do the revision on that.
Mm.
And I could make that as my contribution to the committee.
So you do still have $3,235 in your materials and supplies.
Wouldn't that be a contracted service, which we're over budget on?
Yeah. Would be a contracted service.
So that's why we didn't have off this, because we didn't have much spraying here.
Yeah. Have you got a quote on it before or no?
Not for this particular work, but this original one was a much more labor intensive process, so it wouldn't be as expensive, I would think.
It's
As
just
making
slight revisions, right?
Slight revisions, but again, I don't know how
Yeah.
much prices have gone up since we've done this 5 or 6
Do you
years
want
ago.
me to talk to him? Do you
No,
know?
I can talk to him. It's still Rob. and then
Yeah, okay.
John.
So is it something, could we ask council to take money out of? Or to,
Materials and supplies.
pardon me,
Materials and supplies.
material and supplies to do this project? Like, do we have to do that, or can we make a motion to do that?
I think if we, let's get a quote on it to begin with. And so. Have you got a quote on brochures? You're just waiting to update it? So if they update it,
Once
you would order the brochures.
Correct, and we do that online through vista.ca. And I just upload the files and they print it and they ship it to your door. And then we distribute them in the boxes. That's how we've done it in the past. But my understanding
is that obviously the pamphlets are considered materials and supplies, so that would come out of that budget, which we still have enough to do, correct? To print those, and we've always sort of, you know, something like we sort of make a decision as a committee on how many to print, whether it's 700, whether it's 1,000, whether it's 250, that sort of thing. It would be nice to be able to fill the new pamphlet boxes with new pamphlets.
Just on the redirecting of money from other areas, that's something that's been voted on by council, and it can't be, we get into trouble with our auditors, even if it's a small thing, of
why
not
I
spending the
asked.
money. I can check procedurally, after this meeting, I'll talk with a couple staff to see if there's something that we can do, but I think the answer
Well,
is.
why don't we get a quote first?
Yeah.
But we could perhaps request council to give us permission.
Uh,
Or they couldn't even give us permission.
that, I don't want to give an answer
Good.
on that
Fair enough.
procedurally until I'm 100% certain on that, because I don't want to comment. I'm just saying that as it's on the committee on its own, it cannot do that, and I think the other one would require a vote from council at the minimum, but I am not going to comment even that's okay. I just want to clarify that, sorry.
Okay. So are we good to accept the work plan as is then? We can add those items, Dave, particularly to items for next meeting, 7.3.
Sorry, which item?
Number 6 there.
Sure, yeah, I just,
The Photoshop.
yeah,
If you want to update number 6 to, I will get a quote, and move that forward, that'd be great. Chris, can I ask you to maybe provide me with a rough estimate on how much the sign at Distillery Street costs, just so I can include that in the budget request? Thank you. Was that all new purchase? There's nothing left over? Yeah.
Did we ever repair the 6x6 that was leaning a bit on the sign at the Ameritrade pumps?
Yes,
Or did you-
that was done on Monday.
Thanks so much.
Forgive me for asking the question. I honestly just want to know, with that, installing that new signage, we would not be allowed to do that. That would be just township.
Staff would do it,
Okay, yeah, good enough.
we'll construct it and install it.
Okay. And would staff charge us for that?
No,
Okay,
Mhm.
Marie?
I was just wondering if there's any model that is known where volunteers and certified staff or certified contractors have been allowed to work together on projects. Project by project, will an insurer provide a waiver to volunteers like ourselves who are used to working on trails to protect us from injury during the time that we are from risk of injury during the time that we're working on that particular project? For example, with regards to the work that went on the boardwalk.
Well, I think Chris can maybe answer that question when he gets back to us
Yeah.
on the further
Just-
discussion, the definition of what we're allowed to do.
It's a,
I sort of understand where you're coming from. I think with the boardwalk, so we went out to an RFP. A contractor is not going to bid on an RFP with the, like, you're not going to be covered under his insurance to do that work.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea. I just, think contractors are pretty picky with their work as well, so it's, yeah.
Okay, do we need a motion to accept the work plan?
Yes, please.
Could I have that, please? John, seconded by Maureen, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, 7.3 items for next meeting. Can we please include the following? Continuation of 2025 budget discussion. Update on work plan number 6, signage. Township definition of what we are allowed to do in terms of maintenance on the trails, including
you know, finite definitions of being allowed to build pamphlet boxes and our new benches, et cetera. I'd also like to include, the item of bridge dedication. In May of 2024, we had a discussion at the committee level talking about the ability to dedicate the new floating bridge to a previous member of the Millbrook Valley Trails. I believe at the time, Carly was gonna get back to us in terms of what was allowed because of the potential ramifications around that bridge being funded. And I don't believe we ever heard back, so if we could, that would be
So
great.
that bridge is fully funded.
But again, we want to make sure the caveat, I think there was some misunderstanding potentially with the township in terms of what we wanted to do. It wasn't naming the trail or anything like that, or just putting a plaque on the bridge or even renaming the bridge it was just putting a plaque on the bridge as we have at the Fairgrounds Trail Bridge for a previous member of the MPT. Back in 2017-ish. So that would be great if we get back to that. That's all I have. Is there anything else anybody else would like to see included at the items for next meeting? Okay, I have a motion to receive the items for next meeting held on October 28th at 4 p.m. John, seconded by Lance, all in favor? Motion for adjournment. Lance, seconded by Dave. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody, for your time with you in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to review on for the reports next time?
I think we're in November.
We're November, okay. I haven't looked at the letter in a while, so I just want to make sure.
Just in case.
Might be me. I usually, yeah, I'm not sure though.
I did receive it. Did you ask me to come up?
Did you-
Let's hope not, John.
Must have felt like a hot.
Yeah, I received, okay.
I thought, I had no idea, I thought it could have been this much.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't know either. I couldn't find the document that had where everyone approved it, so I was like, just waiting, and I saw the notes, and I was like, me, I'll go out and hammer them all out this week, but.
Sorry.
Mark, did you stop the live stream?